You have 3 days to leave the house. Emma's smirk cut across the dinner table like a knife. Mom and Dad just stared, silent and stiff. I didn't flinch. Calmly, I reached into my bag, pulled out the property records, and set them beside my untouched plate. No, I said evenly, my voice sharp. You have 24 hours. Their forks clattered to the plates. Emma's confident smirk faltered. Sunday dinners were supposed to feel safe. Rosemary chicken, creamy mashed potatoes, firelight flickering on the walls, but in my family, betrayal always wore a smile. What they didn't realize was that while they schemed in whispers, I had been preparing. While they plotted to push me out, I had stacks of receipts, signed papers, and legal defenses ready. That night wasn't just dinner. It was the beginning of reckoning. 3 years ago, this house was on the edge of collapse. Dad had lost most of his retirement to a failed investment, and Mom's medical bills had piled so high they scraped the kitchen ceiling. Meanwhile, Emma was off in Colorado, living her Instagram-perfect yoga life, posting pictures from Bali, while I scraped together enough cash to cover the gas bill. I never told them how close we came to losing everything. I just acted. I refinanced the mortgage in my name, took a business loan using my freelance income as collateral, and worked 60-hour weeks in the cramped guest room. Often, I fell asleep next to spreadsheets and overdue notices. They never asked how the bills were paid. They only thanked God when the foreclosure letters stopped arriving. I let them believe what they wanted. I didn't do it for praise. I did it because this house wasn't just walls and beams. It held our memories. The floral wallpaper Mom picked in '98. The scorch mark on the deck from that reckless July 4th fireworks show. Even the creaky third step that betrayed my midnight fridge raids. This house was home in blood as much as in brick. I remember the day the deed was signed over to me. Mom and Dad's hands trembled at the lawyer's office. "Are you sure?" the lawyer asked. Dad nodded. "It's the only way we survived this." I kept calm, though inside, I felt the heavy weight of responsibility pressing down. Inheritance without celebration, duty without pride. That night Emma called. Not to check in, not to ask if I was okay, but to brag about her new Jeep and her fiancé's sapphire proposal. I didn't tell her about the house, the debt, or the 3 days I survived on instant ramen. She wouldn't have cared, or worse, she'd twist it into something ugly, as she always did. Growing up, Emma had been the golden child. Star cheerleader, valedictorian, Daddy's little sunshine. I was the quiet one, unnoticed, never asking for much. Because I didn't demand, they forgot to offer. But I remembered everything. The birthdays she ignored, the calls she missed, Mom's reassurances. "She's just busy, sweetheart. Don't be jealous." I wasn't jealous. I was exhausted. So when Emma returned 2 weeks ago, perfectly coiffed, monogrammed luggage in tow, that same smirk plastered across her face, I knew trouble was coming. I didn't anticipate just how easily they'd fall back into her orbit. Emma walked in like she'd never left, claiming the house as if it were hers by default. Designer bag on the floor, air kisses for Mom, Dad's eyes lighting up like a child's. I stood in the kitchen doorway, dish towel in hand, watching the performance. Not a word, not even a glance for me. Later, I learned she had texted them weeks earlier, asking if she could stay while rebuilding her life. Apparently, she had left her fiancé, or maybe he had left her. Either way, she needed a place. Naturally, she chose the one place she never lifted a finger to save. Dinner that night was her stage. Laughing too loudly, interrupting, dominating every story, sipping wine like water. Mom clung to her every word. Dad nodded, mesmerized. When I brought out dessert, their favorite lemon tart, she scoffed. "Still playing house, huh, V?" Her jab was tiny, but it stung. Emma never needed cruelty. Subtlety was her weapon. Backhanded compliments, one-word dismissals, comparisons laced in sarcasm. They all worked. And slowly Mom and Dad fell in line. Emma took the master bedroom. I retreated to the guest room, now my office, the one I had made into a home during months of quiet survival. "She just needs space to heal," Mom said one morning. "Don't make things tense," Dad added, not looking up from his coffee. Tense. That word again. Existing tense. Paying bills tense. Enforcing boundaries tense. But Emma flouncing in silk robes, ignoring chores? Totally fine. I stayed silent, until one night I overheard them whispering on the porch. "She's always been so rigid," Emma said. She's tired, Mom replied. Maybe it's time she grows up and finds her own place. Maybe she should move out. I was standing just inside the screen door. And for the first time I let myself think clearly. This wasn't temporary. Emma hadn't returned to heal. She had returned to reclaim. And my parents were ready to let her. Erosion is quiet, subtle, almost invisible. And then one morning you realize the foundation beneath your feet has vanished. First came the small things. Mom stopped offering coffee. Dad left my mail unopened. Emma moved my things in the kitchen, laughed at my mess. Rearranged what I had organized. No one asked. Then came the glances, the quiet pauses when I entered a room. A subtle reminder that I was no longer the center of this home. One evening I froze in the doorway. Fire crackling, wine glasses in hand, Emma talking about an online real estate course. I think we should downsize eventually, she said casually. Maybe sell the house while it's still in good condition. Get a condo somewhere quieter. This place is just too much for Evelyn alone. And in that instant I realized. They didn't see me as the protector of this home anymore. They saw me as the obstacle. No one even noticed me. I slipped out of the room quietly, letting the guest room door click softly behind me. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I sank into my chair at my desk and opened the folder I always kept close. Property documents, deeds, title transfers, mortgage statements, tax receipts, lawyer notes. All in my name, all my responsibility, all my home. Yet none of it seemed to matter in their eyes. Emma still held the center of their universe. Despite her absence, despite all she hadn't contributed, loyalty had been handed to her like a birthright. And me? I had to earn mine dollar by dollar, month after month, quietly, obediently. Conditional, fragile, always dependent on my usefulness. I began locking my door. Not out of fear, but out of a grim premonition. Something was coming. I could sense it in Emma's evasive glances, in Mom's sighs when I mentioned bills, in Dad's subdued, hesitant tone. Do you really need to be here full time? They never said it aloud, but their message was clear. You're in the way. You're too much. You don't belong. So I waited. Not passively. I sharpened my patience, gathered proof, let them underestimate me. Let them assume I was soft, compliant, loyal, too polite to fight. I knew the strike was coming. I just hadn't expected it to land over roast chicken and red wine. It was meant to be a simple dinner. Roast chicken, garlic mashed potatoes, Mom's lemon vinaigrette salad. The kind she made when she wanted life to feel ordinary. The table was set for 4. Emma brought out an expensive bottle of wine from somewhere, probably picked up on her way home from yoga. Dad carved the chicken like it was Thanksgiving. And I watched them silently, as they pretended this house wasn't built on the quiet, exhausting labor of my 20s. Halfway through the meal, Emma took a deliberate sip of wine, set her glass down with her usual flair, and gave me a smile that was all teeth and calculation. You have 3 days to leave the house. Just like that. 3 words, simple, flat, delivered over mashed potatoes like they were part of a recipe. I blinked. Excuse me? I asked softly, careful not to let my voice betray the storm inside. Emma tilted her head, sweetness coating steel. It's not personal, E. We just think it's time for you to move on. You've been here too long. It's unhealthy. I repeated, hoping for any hesitation. We agree? Mom and Dad do, she said, eyes flicking to them like a prosecutor revealing co-conspirators. Dad cleared his throat, muttering, it's not about the house. Peace, I whispered. You think this is peace? Emma leaned forward, elbows on the table like we were gossiping over coffee. I just don't want us walking on eggshells. Your energy, it's heavy. I almost laughed. Heavy. The girl who hadn't paid a single bill, who returned like a queen in exile, was lecturing me about energy. My hands trembled, not with fear but with the calm of realization. I reached into my bag and pulled out the thick folder I hadn't touched in months. I opened it, flipped to the first page and slid it across the table. The deed. In my name. Signed, notarized, filed. 2 years ago. Actually, I said, voice steady, you all have 24 hours. The room froze. Emma stared at the papers like they were in a foreign language. Mom's eyes darted from the deed to me, wide with disbelief. Dad's fork clattered against the plate. I don't understand, Emma whispered. It's very real, I said. Signed, notarized, legally binding. Dated 18 months ago, the day I finished paying off the mortgage. I slid another document forward. Paid off loans. Insurance in my name. Property taxes settled. Roof repaired. Electrical fixed. Basement mold gone. You weren't here to see any of it. Emma shot up from her chair. The scrape of wood on floor sharp and angry. So this is about control, she spat. No, I said, standing. It's about respect, something none of you thought I deserved. Mom's voice trembled. You're kicking out your family? I'm reclaiming what I built, I said. What I held together when everyone else disappeared. What I sacrificed my 20s for. You let her walk in and declare me a squatter. And you said nothing. We didn't know, Dad murmured. I snapped. You didn't want to know. You wanted to pretend this house stayed afloat on its own. That I was invisible. Emma laughed, bitter and cutting. No wonder no one wants to live with you. You're impossible. I never asked for a parade, I said, voice rising. But I didn't ask to be humiliated over dinner like some stranger who overstayed their welcome. I pulled out the last page. A lawyer's notice of eviction. You have 24 hours. After that, law enforcement will be involved. The locksmith comes tomorrow afternoon. You wouldn't dare. Emma hissed. I met her gaze. You dared first. Dad rose, hands shaking. There has to be another way, Evelyn. There was, I said. When I asked you both to sign the deed, and you did. When you told me you were proud, I stepped up. When I spent 2 years cleaning your mess silently. That was your other way. You chose this one instead. Mom's eyes welled. I stared back. No. I wasn't this person naturally. But you made me. You let her humiliate me at this table and said nothing. Emma moved toward me, defiance in her posture. I'm not leaving. This is our family home. I stepped back, hand gripping the table. Yes, we both grew up here. But I stayed when it mattered. You don't get to rewrite history just because you're louder. She opened her mouth, but I cut her off. Pack your things. By noon tomorrow. Or officers will escort you. The room sank into silence. Slowly, Emma stormed upstairs, heels echoing like gunshots. Dad buried his face in his hands. Mom looked at me. For the first time, I think she really saw me. I left the table. Went to my room. Closed the door. Heart pounding. House creaking around me. Outside calm. Inside clarity. I had just severed the last ties I had left. Yet fear didn't touch me this time. The following morning, the house felt altered. Not quieter. It had always been quiet in that tense, polite way, but hollow like a crack had spread through its core overnight, letting every trace of warmth slip away. Sleep eluded me. I lay in bed, straining to catch every sound. The floorboards groaning under invisible weight, the faint slide of a drawer, murmured voices drifting down the corridor. They were packing. At 8:13 a.m., I heard the front door click open, and Emma's voice cut through the air like shattered glass. Just circle the truck around. I don't need help. I just need you to be quick. I stayed put. Didn't gloat. Didn't offer assistance. I just sat at the edge of my bed, hands tight in my lap, waiting for what came next. Footsteps on the stairs. A suitcase dragged across the wooden floor. Then silence. By 10:07 a.m., I ventured out for coffee. The hall was empty, but the air itself seemed charged, like the aftermath of a storm. Dad sat in his recliner, eyes fixed on a blank TV screen, remote in hand but idle. He didn't look up, didn't speak. I passed like a ghost. Mom was in the kitchen, wrapping plates in fragile labeled boxes. She paused, avoiding my gaze. Your father doesn't know where we're headed yet, she murmured. Emma had offered her small apartment. It'll be cramped, she added. I gave no reply, only a single nod, and reached for the kettle. She hadn't meant to start the conversation. She began and I interrupted. And you let her. You let her do it. Mom's shoulders sagged. She didn't protest, didn't cry, just wrapped the next plate in newspaper. By 11:40, the front door opened and closed 3 times. Emma. Mom. Dad. No farewells, no lingering words, only departure, only wind rattling against the windows. At 12:30, I locked the door. Turned the bolt slowly, listening as it clicked into place. It was done. No screaming. No fights. Only a clean fracture, one that wouldn't show but would never fully heal. I walked through the house room by room. Their belongings were gone, but their presence lingered. Dad's cologne clung to the hallway air. Mom's gardening gloves rested on the windowsill. Emma's perfume still lingered in the guest room she had claimed as her own. I touched nothing. I just stood in the living room, the center of what had been family, letting silence settle like a layer of dust. For the first time in years, the house was mine. But it didn't feel like triumph. It felt like the aftermath. The first morning alone was eerily still. No footsteps. No mugs clinking. No whispers behind doors. Only the hum of the fridge, the groan of the floorboards, and the steady rhythm of my breathing. I brewed coffee and sat by the window. For once, no one had claimed the best seat. The house felt strange yet familiar, like an old dress I hadn't worn in years. I began small. Cleared the master bedroom, which Emma had taken over as though owed. I opened windows wide, aired the space, painted the walls a soft gray, removed the floral curtains Mom clung to, and hung a single photograph. Me alone, arms spread wide, smiling atop a Montana trail. Next, the hallway. I took down the old family portraits, not to erase the past, but to keep it from dominating the present. I boxed them, labeled them. Memories, not altars. Then the garden. I pulled out Mom's neglected rose bushes, the ones she insisted we keep for Dad's sake. In their place, I planted lavender and rosemary, plants that didn't merely survive, but flourished in sunlight and space. Every action became ritual, a reclaiming. I fixed the creaky stair Emma always complained about, replaced the attic light bulb, transformed the guest room, once my workspace, then her private suite, into a sunlit office. Slowly, the house began to breathe with me. It no longer felt haunted, no longer echoed with what-ifs, and started to feel like a space built for now. Not the ghosts of those who had left. I cooked for myself, played music loud, danced barefoot in the hallway, laughed fully when I spilled coffee on a rug without needing to apologize. I no longer waited for anyone's approval, no longer bent to fit a mold I was never meant to fill. Alone but not lonely. The house belonged to me. Not just in deed but in presence, in effort, in intention. And that was enough. Then one Tuesday, a plain white envelope appeared among the bills and coupons. No return address, but the handwriting was unmistakable. Mom's loopy, careful cursive, the one she used on birthday cards with smiley faces. I held it long, hesitant, not from fear, but from indifference, like reopening a book I'd already finished. But I opened it. 2 neat pages. No corrections, no apologies. She claimed to forgive me, as if defending my home, boundaries, and worth were crimes needing absolution. She spoke of Emma trying her best, of their adjustment to a tiny city apartment, and ended with, "We still love you, Evelyn, even if we don't understand you anymore." I read it once, folded it carefully, dropped it in the recycling bin, not out of anger, not theatrically, but because I didn't need it. I didn't need love bound by conditions, nor understanding from those who never tried. For so long I had begged for crumbs. Validation, acknowledgement, kindness. Now I was full. The silence after their departure no longer carried loneliness. It carried clarity. The house no longer echoed, it reflected. Honestly. Imperfectly. Fully. I poured tea, sat by the window, watched afternoon light spill across the lavender. And I smiled. Some stories don't need closure.